Broadcasting live from the command center located in Jacksonville, Florida, this is Military Witnesses to UAP. I am your host, Shannon Scott. And backed by popular demand, located deep in the Missouri woods, my right-hand man, Rob Heatherly. We both have assumed the duties and responsibilities of continuing the conversation. So, buckle up, hold my beer, hang on, and let's get started with today's briefings. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing all right, man. Just a little manic at the moment, trying to hustle around, get the YouTube pulled up so I can see the chat because I had a flooded basement and been hosing up water for the last hour and a half. So grabbed a bite to eat, and now I'm trying to get this to load, which my new computer is working excellent. I just have to be able to see it, operate it. That's all.
All right, I'll do some housekeeping then. Carry on. Okay, let me bring up some banners, folks. So first of all, I want to tell you guys, see if I can find it. It's right here.
That's UFO man.
Here it is. We only need 147 subscribers. So, oh yeah, that's right, 147 subscribers. And then we can monetize this channel and we can donate 100% of the proceeds go to Shannon Scott's annual Vets and Vets for Wounded Vets and Pets fundraiser. Very honored that buddy here, Rob, and Lou Elizondo named this charity after me. Very humbled. It blows my mind every day that I think about it. It's going to be taking care of some vets, and it's going to be taking care of some pets, folks. So you can't go wrong there.
Man and man's best friend. And that's...
I know, right? Hey, I hear myself.
Yeah, I'm
Is there an echo in here?
Say what?
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I'm getting it. Okay, if I like this
well
enough, I'll even go to thumbs up, man.
Oh, good. Man, we almost got 10 people. Look at there, 10 people. 10 people in here watching this live. Yeah, we try. If you don't know now.
Did we get this thrown out on Twitter?
Yeah, I didn't. If you would be so kind.
Yeah, I will do that now. And anybody else feels motivated, please put it out on Twitter for me. That would be greatly appreciated. I had to do emergency vac, not evac, but vac on my basement because of the water flow that's not supposed to be outside.
Yeah, well, whose job was to? What happened exactly, Rob? Just the water pipe?
When I built the addition onto the house, I poured the three. I live on the side of a hill or on the summit, and built the walk out by the hill. 3 sides of it are poured concrete, reinforced, and the part facing the ravine and the downhill side is. I should have put a knee wall of concrete in there, but I didn't. So I built it with a sill plate of wood, and it meets the concrete slab that it's sitting on. The seal has been eroded and flooded out, so now it's flooding out underneath the wood seal into the basement. So I've got to pull the siding out and recaulk it.
So long story short, it's your fault. Long story short, it's your fault.
You about to lose your job.
Mother Nature got wall. I should have done that.
It gets hot and cold there, so you get the fluctuation of the pipes and they burst, right? Yeah.
Well, this one wasn't a pipe. It was just the expansion and contraction of the water flowing down, and we were scraping the bedrock when we were digging out the basement. So literally there was no more earth to be moved when we were backhoeing out the foundation for the add-on. We barely had enough to get the minimum 6 inches of slab for the floor of the basement to pour over the bedrock shelf that we dug onto. So didn't get the pitch that we needed to lean it out on the hill. So made a bit do with it, but in hindsight, they were supposed to be the expert, brother and father-in-law,
Yeah.
on advising. I wanted to put a knee wall in there with reinforced rebar, but they're like, "No, we don't need that, and it's extra work, more money." I'm like, oh, "Okay, you guys are the experts." But yeah, I was an engineer, engineered construction, high rises, condominiums for hurricane impact, even some DoD projects, including the Pentagon, for blast resistance. So what the hell do I know? You know, I should have
Well, we
followed my
got
instincts and paid the extra money. Yeah.
all right, folks. If you guys make sure if you have a question, please submit your questions in all caps, so Blind Rob and I would be able to read them. All right. So before we go on to our stories today, anything on Twitter that you'd like to share that you came across the last 24 hours? I didn't know.
I was looking into the Ukraine story more. I don't want to get into the gossip. I just,
Yeah.
damage control at some point, it's going to need addressed. But if there's something factual and relevant to say, we'll bring it up at some point. But I can get into the mudslinging and focus on the facts and focus on what's relevant to disclosure. Yeah, we want just facts.
Just out of curiosity and entertainment purpose. Just out of entertainment purposes. Just out of curiosity, what are the rumors, Rob? What are you hearing?
Well, the drama, evidently. Well, I know what it is. Luis Jimenez is upset. Some of it he did to himself. Nobody's perfect. Mistake with trying to telling
Hold your mouth better. There you go. Sounding better now.
He was telling when he was interviewing Green Street on his YouTube podcast a while back. He told Green Street that Lou had written Jimenez a private message saying that Green Street was a felon, and that he that's kind of paraphrasing it, but when he put that out there like that, it made Lou look bad, and created a lot of controversy that was kicked up on Twitter, of course. So Lou showed me the context of the conversation to show me that no, what he was saying was not accurate. And he also showed Richard Butt the same shot of and it's on Twitter. People can go back and find it, where it specifies where Lou mentioned, the felon 5, comma, and then something relating to Green Street. So did not mention him as being a felon, was not referenced as such. And they even had a conversation with Luis Jimenez, Jennifer, and Lou after that on a phone call, asking him to set the record straight. He said he would, and he didn't. He let it ride. So if he would just have followed through and fixed his mistake, this could have been this whole, exponentially exploded drama fest afterwards that ensued. Could have been all avoided, and not had such a absolute finality to the outcome if he had just done the right thing like he said he would, and own his mistake and correct it. I don't profess to be perfect at all, but when I screw up, I make it right, and I try not to keep making the same mistakes twice. And I definitely don't throw innocent people under the bus like Luis Jimenez did to Lou. So that's why Richard Butt and Lou had sent it to me also, because he wanted to prove to us that that he did not say that and was proving it. And if we needed to provide that portion only of the conversation that was supposed to be kept private in a DM, that we could use that on Twitter to prove his innocence on it. But we gave Luis Jimenez the opportunity of saying, look, we know what it says, and we've got a copy of that portion of the conversation. So now's your chance to set the record straight here on Twitter, make a statement, or we're going to put it out there for people, because we're not going to let Lou take a hit on something he didn't do. He's an innocent party on that conversation. He didn't do it. He said he didn't owe anybody an explanation. He'd get to it in his own effing time. And said if we know the truth, and just go ahead and put it out there. Since we know, what the truth was, evidently. Well, he called, he thought we were bluffing, I guess. And Richard Butt saved me the hassle of having to post it, and he did it instead, and proved that, it said a reference to the Felon 5, comma, and then mentioned something about Green Street, being, a less than pleasant person to deal with at some capacity, but he didn't call him a felon by any means. And the grammar matters, the little comma thing, and it was kind of a big blow up. Jimenez stated that to Green Street, I think on the live with him, that he had two of his friends look at it, and they agreed that Lou Elizondo had called Green Street a felon, but he wouldn't show the message, saying he didn't want to break the confidence of sharing a private message. But he'd already done that by saying what he thought he had shared what he shouldn't share verbally, but saying he was going to stand on integrity and not share it, a photocopy of the conversation. So same difference. And we gave him the opportunity to come forward and set the record straight. He chose not to, and instead doubled down on the lie, and said that he had two friends look at it, which what he should have done. And this is all out there on Twitter, folks. You can go back and find it, and even use Google search engine with the terms, and it'll find it quicker than trying to search Twitter. But he had the opportunity to set it correct, and he chose not to. And
what would be the reason why one would do such a thing?
Well,
why would he not tell the truth? Is it to get like more views on a channel, or is it?
I think like with Green Street or Greenwald.
Yeah.
When Lou had announced that he was no longer going to be doing social media podcast interviews, people were scrambling to get an interview with him before it was done. And Greenwald wanted to be the last person to interview him, claiming that no one else in Twitter land or YouTube could interview Lou like he could, being the brainstorming intellectual that he is, with his superior intellect over everybody else in the community. He slammed all them, stating that he's the most qualified to interview Lou, hands down, and the rest of us are B-roll amateurs compared to him.
Well, Lou, being the last ones to interview Lou, I think we did a pretty good doggone job there, Rob. It was unlike any other.
That was a conversation among friends, and Lou was a man of his word. He did not have any more UFO-related conversations on YouTube, because Greenwald and Green Street and Mick West all came out wailing and gnashing of teeth, claiming that Lou was a liar because, here he is having another podcast after he said he wasn't going to. No, Lou was a man of his word. He promised you months prior, when you're in the hospital struggling to stay alive, that when you got your up and running, he'd be your first interview. And being true to his word, that's what he did. It wasn't on the topic of UFOs. It was a conversation among friends about, everything but, a veterans affairs, Jeep building. It was an enjoyable conversation, but they turned it around, tried to twist it. And to answer your question, it seems to me that even negative attention is better than no attention, and that they
like
found
a controversy, a controversy, having some drama in your podcast friction that may draw people in when you make a nice thumbnail on your YouTube channel about the topic.
Yeah, and they knew that after the debacle with squidding, accusing Lou of having sock puppet accounts and manipulating people in that regard, they found that formula. With Lou already on the way out the door with no more podcasts, they had to have some kind of something to get attention with and get people back, to get traffic back to their channel. So using the controversy that they manufactured, like what Greenwald did, Green Street. Greenwald wanted the last interview, but he didn't tell Lou that he was working on the first episode of the new season of The Basement Office with Green Street, which was a hit piece against Lou. So he was being less than honest by not divulging that to Lou and wanting to have an interview, the last one, and he was wanting to recon information, evidently, to use with Green Street on the new episode. So in Lou's absence, they wanted to harvest what information they could last to turn on the news against him. That's not integrity, folks. That's just not the way you conduct yourself. And with Jimenez, after
Burning
the
bridges.
stock puppet thing with squidding, they found that, controversy sells. And even though he was full disclosure about his earnings and stuff this year, I feel for him being a caregiver. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's not anyone's fault. Lou is not responsible for his income. No one is except for him. And to try and manufacture controversy to keep traffic onto your channel because they found out that with the squidding thing, they got a lot of traffic out of that deal. So when he had a Green Street on, it almost looked rehearsed in the way it's not a natural flow of conversation where Jimenez mentions that, somebody alluded to you being a felon, accused you of being a felon. He goes, was it Lou or something like that? And he's like, I'll tell you off air or something like that. And it's like, but did Lou write something about me? What'd you say? What'd he say? He goes, we'll talk off air. And then he said that he had two friends confirm it that looked at the DM with Lou that they agreed that Lou was calling Green Street a felon. Well, here's the part that got me the most, and Richard, I think several people, and this is lost recently to the question of what happened here, is that if Jimenez had any misunderstanding or confusion about what the communication from Lou Elizondo had stated, he should have gone to Lou and asked him directly, hey, bro, clarify this for me so I don't get the record wrong and state something that isn't accurate. Instead, he went to two of his friends that looked at it. So there he shared a private conversation to have them clarify that he said that they agreed that Lou was referring to him as a felon, and did that instead of asking Lou. So he betrayed his confidences to somebody else by sharing it and didn't come to him, the source of it, to ask him what he meant by writing it, because who would know better what it meant and what the intention was to the missive than the person that wrote it. So that is lost in this debate right now, is that Luis Jimenez should have gone back to Lou Elizondo and said, hey, bro, I'm confused of what this statement is. Can you clarify it for me? Instead, he goes on air and it looks like a contrived controversy to where he's got Green Street popping up and saying, oh, did Lou put you to say that about me? And it looked like manufactured drama, and them knowing that Lou's on the way out the door and they're not going to have more interviews with him, they got to have something to keep his name in play, even if it's bad attention, because they knew that it was strained anyway after squidding. So they might as well, go with the next. If they can't have him directly, then they can bring out controversy with Green Street and get back in that camp, and maybe get on an episode of the Basement Office and things of that nature. Like,
Right.
like Greenwald did. So
Right.
it was an unfortunate. If it was truly a misunderstanding and not an attempt to manufacture drama, I don't see why he wouldn't have just gone to Lou, cleared it up, and never mentioned it to his friends, and definitely not mentioned it on air. So that led me to think that I have to lean towards him manufacturing drama, for attention. And Greenwald's done the same thing, and Mick West. When we had that interview with Lou, they immediately jumped on Twitter and tried to make any, that they took the Nazi comment way out of context and tried to bring attention to themselves. And there were several other people that jumped into that bandwagon trying to bring up attention that had nothing to do with the conversation whatsoever, nothing at all, and tried to make it about them because they also wanted the attention from it. So, negative attention is better than no attention. And they couldn't even let an innocent conversation among friends, lie. Just let it go. They had to find something to pick it apart and criticize. Even like with Green Street and Greenwald, they're trying to stand on little technicality of nuances of words, slight subtle differences of time, just like how they're coming after Gary Nolan and saying, one of the guys on Twitter saying that, well, I've gone and checked every one of Gary Nolan's accounts of his memory on recalling his experiencer encounters when he was young, of interactions with beings coming into his room and things. And the guy on Twitter stating that that Gary Nolan wasn't completely consistent in his account of his stories that he was telling with each one, that there were some inconsistencies, that it wasn't cookie cutter 100% accurate every time he told it. But if you know anything about psychology, the more controversial and emotionally charged the topic is, especially trauma, abuse, and something I know a lot about because I unfortunately suffered a lot of it when I was growing up. The more controversial and horrifying or scary or just unacceptable to the brain, the less apt somebody is to get the details straight, because they try to make sense of it and reframe it into something that both they can accept and that they can understand. And the more in psychology, there's sound psychology that backs this up. And I found a study recently, and I did post a tweet about this a little bit. The more surreal and horrifying an account is, the less apt the person is to be able to remember it accurately. So, and the fewer people they're willing to tell of their ordeals. So Gary coming in and just now starting to share on social media his interactions with the phenomenon, which I knew nothing about, prior to a few weeks ago with his interviews. Of course, he's not going to tell it exactly accurate each time. It's not a script he's reading from. He's drawing from memory from when he was a child. So, of course, it's going to have some inconsistencies. If it were 100% correct every time, then yeah, you could suspect that at least he's going off of a cue card or something to have it 100% accurate every time with consistency. But that's not a normal flow of conversation for a person to just share their experience. And it shouldn't have to match 100% on every nuance. And they get hung up on the details of it that mean nothing to the essence of the core main story that they're trying to convey. And they got hung up on these little side trails, the Greenwald, Green Street, and all them claiming, oh, well, Lou's a liar because they didn't have it exactly right in every account. There was a little bit of not a controversy, but it wasn't 100% consistent with the storytelling every time. But people also have to remember that Lou promised Lukatsky that he would not out him, prior to his book coming out. When Lukatsky was ready to come forward and share what he knew, then Lou could talk about it. But and it wasn't even law, and he wasn't bound by NDA to not say anything about Lukatsky. It was a gentleman's agreement among coworkers that, and counterparts, that Lou was a man of his word. He promised him that he would not out him, and he would come out on his terms when he was ready. And Lou suffered a great deal because Lukatsky could have came out prior to when his book came out and set the record straight for people, but instead, and in part, and I may be not entirely correct on how I'm accounting this, but Leslie Kean and them, when they wrote the 2017 New York Times article on December 16th, Glowing Auras and Black Budgets, they had already harvested the information about AATIP and all that, and they called Lou up and said, hey, we're going to publish this. Do you want to add something to it before we go to press? Lou didn't contact them and spill his guts. It was the other way around. They gave him a chance to set the record straight and make sure what was coming out was accurate on his part, that involved him. And they were not, they allowed the $22 million to AATIP to ride because Lou kept his promise to Lukatsky. And that's part Green Street was so upset about, was that, well, Lou lied about that and the money and all that. And he was keeping a promise because he was a man of his word. And technically it was not a lie because, if you look at the context of it, that Harry Reid, when he was trying to get the funding and to get the program classified in 2009, I think it was, or 7, he used AATIP in a non-classified transmission. That way he protected the name of the true classified portion, or that they wanted to have classified so they could protect it. So he used AATIP to describe initially OSAP. In that context, at that time frame, that was accurate. He used that as a nickname for OSAP. So technically the 22 million did go to AATIP as it was framed by Harry Reid at that time. And since then it evolved, and the record was set straight by including Lou Elizondo, who stated that yes, at one point when he inherited OSAP for a day, him and a counterpart shut it down and kept the version that they were working on previously, which was investigating the military aspects and reports, which was what AATIP was and became named as. That was their function. So, they shut down the GM plant, which was OSAP, that had the $22 million funding, but part of that funding went to fund AATIP in that regard until 2012, when it ended as a DIA project and was moved to the DOD. And then it ran off of the DOD budget. They had requested some monies that were for it, but they didn't get the right people in Congress that, with the power of the purse, briefed into what that program actually was, and it inadvertently went to something else. So then they had to go to a bare bones budget of running things on the program, but it was a legitimate program throughout, until Lou left in 2017. It was a viable project, and he was head of that organization. And they are upset about the nuances of that Lou lied to him and misrepresented things. No, he kept his word to people. And at the time, if you look at the context of the labels that they used in the manner that they did at the time, it was accurate information. So Lou did not lie. He kept his promises, and they're holding him on technicalities, and they're not using the correct timeline and documents that came out that corrected the record, like dismissing Harry Reid's statement. Even Jim Sullivan came out in an interview last year and was stating that he was briefed when he was in the CIA by Lou as the head of AATIP. You don't just waltz in to a skiff room on reputation without being verified and just say, hey, I know some shit and I'm not going to prove it to you, Just take my word for it, guys. That's how the CIA operates. That's how the Pentagon operates. We just take somebody's word for it. We don't play with facts. That's not relevant. Um, Bullshit. You
Yeah.
know, Lou briefed him in a skiff room in an official capacity conversation as the head of AATIP, to brief Jim Simivan, who had his position in the CIA at the time. That's a statement of fact that he has out there on those interviews. So if you want to, they're calling Lou a liar, but Lou, has backup on these assertions that he's made of people that are validating his story all over the place. And Christopher Mellon, I mean, my God, look at all the elevated positions that he was in. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, he was even head of all the top secret SCA programs. So he had
Right.
knowledge of all of the programs. And if
He
anybody would
did.
know Lou's true position and the program, it would be him. And he authenticated it also. So how they can ignore that and try and say that it was never a real program and it was just LARPing after work with some guys at the gym after work, after hours, and nothing officially sanctioned. There's a lot of people in high places with impeccable reputations also that verified his accounting of it, and they disregard all that to fit their narratives, which are less than honest and not operating with integrity. Um, so yeah, long story short, they wanted the drama, they wanted the attention, and since Lou's exiting and they don't have that as a cash cow to back
Yeah.
them up, then they gotta throw the bandwagon on the I respect Lou, but he lied, and we got to hold him accountable for it. So therefore, we're gonna
Yeah.
have you know we appreciate what he did, but since he didn't cross the T and dot the I, we're gonna vilify him and just
Yeah.
try and sully his reputation every chance we get for it. Um,
Yeah. That's sad. As long as I've known Lou, as long as you've known Lou, he has never said an untruth. He's never lied. He's never deceived. He's always been
as honest as he's allowed to be, and if he couldn't speak the truth, he just didn't
to a
say anything.
fault.
He's like, no
He is the
comment.
most honest person I know. He's more honest than I am. And I thought I was an honest.
Yeah.
He
And,
really is an
well, he's
awesome
also
guy.
he's under persistent review for his security
Mhm.
clearance, and as hot and heavy as the DoD wants to strip him of his security clearance so he couldn't work anymore, they've been trying to do that since he resigned in 2017. If there were
Right.
if any of these allegations being made by anybody that have been advanced, you think that they haven't researched every rumor that came out against Lou? I am
Right.
certain that they investigated every single one of them, because the significant ones, if they showed a pattern of behavior of lying, they could have stripped him of his security clearance. The fact that he still has it is testimony that he passed muster and didn't actually lie, as people have accused him of. He was honest about what he said, or he would not still have his security clearance. It's that simple.
Right. Well, I've been checking out the chat. I think we have some new people here. Um, there was somebody talking about, hey, I came here. I was thinking that I would just hear about some information about some UAP that is seen at this Air Force base. But as you can tell, we'll get to that. Um, if you caught us earlier in the conversation, I basically
Absolutely.
asked Rob what's been going on Twitter, and apparently a lot has been going on, and that's where we're at in this conversation. If we just came up and we just showed a video, it'd be done and over with. And no, this is a very long form conversation between friends, and we are happy that you are joining us along with everybody else. And you're welcome to the conversation. If you have any questions, make sure you put it all in caps. And we'll get to
And
that video in a little bit. Real quick,
yeah,
teaser. I got a teaser right here. Here on my
okay.
iPad. Let me bring it up. Unlock it. This, my friends, I got several pictures of orbs in the Appalachian Mountains, and the orb is between the photographer and the mountain. So I got pictures like that, and I think I got a video. So we'll be telling the story about this service member who sent that to me. And you don't have to be a service member to send me stuff, folks. So we'll be doing that. All right,
Yeah,
Rob.
that's kind of
What
a
else is going
guideline.
on Twitter?
Well, there's more information coming out about the Ukrainian program to investigate UAP, and I was reading that just right before I came in here, trying to get logged on. And I will address the chat as soon as I get it working correctly, as best I can to catch up in it. So I apologize for not engaging as I normally do yet, but I am getting there. Just, give me a minute to catch up. Hopefully he's got some decent bean footage to show, so I can get caught up on my reading.
Go ahead, Rob. I got some I want to show everybody. So just like you guys, I'm fiddle farting around on YouTube, and I kid you not, I came across this. Did you come across this as well, there, Rob?
I cannot see what you're talking about.
It's a picture of you and me. Apparently, we're being interviewed this Saturday.
Oh yeah,
on UFO Man. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember something about that.
It's like, so I texted you, I called you, I was like, hey, we're being interviewed. And he said, well, how about that? Look at there, we're being interviewed. So yes,
yeah,
I will be interviewed on the UFO Man this Saturday.
Yeah. Surprise!
And make sure, I mean, you just can't get enough of us. You got to go to other channels to see us as well. So let me bring up some other goodies. So, Minot Air Force Base. What do you know about Minot Air Force Base?
And he does want me to talk about ancient history as far as.
Yeah. I see it. Somebody or somebody.
Refresh my memory. I'm trying to get the chat working. Bear with me.
Okay. Well, you do that, and I will talk about some other stuff. Well, apparently, ladies and gentlemen, there's been some leaked footage from Minot Air Force Base, and that is in North Dakota. And let me bring that up, folks. So one of the cool things you can do on Google Earth, you can zoom in, you can see what's going on. There's their assets. There's bombers, B-51s. Right. So let me see.
Almost there.
They got the Wing 3 Minot Air Force Base. I'm sorry, B-52 Stratofortresses. Yep. Yeah. So I'm gonna run that bean footage, dude. You get that chat going. All right, folks. Here's the video. Check it out.
Speed. You can see it fly over the horizon. I'm going to slow it down here. Now it's just halted in midair. Then shortly I zoom in. This is where I notice it. I'm going to pause here. And that's the object that I zoomed in on. I'm going to play it again. I zoom back out because I really can't believe what I'm seeing. So I zoom back in, And as I zoom back in, it disappears there. It just fades out. And so I zoom back out to make sure that's just not a camera issue. And then it reappears. So I zoom back in immediately, and there it is again. And then as I zoom in this second time, or third time, it disappears again. And unfortunately on this phone camera, you can't see it, but it fades off gently to the right. It's very pixelated on this camera. And so I sit here for a second, wait for it to come back, and it doesn't. But it was sitting there for around 4 minutes. And as soon as I started observing it, it disappeared. And I monitored this camera for the rest of the night, and it never came back. So hopefully we can figure this out.
That's very interesting. Now, I just got a word of caution here. Just be cautious, folks. I have to tell you, there is there's a situation where with some cameras, when you zoom in, to me that was totally weird, right? I can't explain it. However, with some of the cameras, if it was maybe just a light coming toward the camera and doing everything, and it wasn't that shape, maybe it was just a bright light, because some apertures inside the cameras, they look like that when they come down like this. The aperture sometimes looks like a triangle. They sometimes look like a circle. It's depending on the camera and the aperture. So just be aware of that. There's a lot of video footage in the world where that's part of the artifact of the camera, and that's not really what is there. But that's very interesting. I'd be interested to know what the aperture looks like inside the camera. Maybe it's it's a circle. That's what I'm thinking. It's probably a security camera, right? Might be a circle. And either way, it's weird. It looks like a freaking UFO, right? So, or a flying saucer or something with a dome on top. That's very interesting. All right. So what I did, folks, is I took the video and I put it through my, what is it called? My iMovie app here on my iPad, and I spun it up so that you could see it come over the horizon. It comes over to the horizon, stops, and then comes further and disappears. So we'll run that footage. Check it out. One more time. That's interesting, dude. That thing, whatever it was, it did appear to be traveling toward the camera from the horizon. So there you go.
That kind of
All right,
reminds
that's
me
it,
of the one
folks.
that was, you know,
Good night.
there was that one that was on Twitter before I met you last fall. There was a video from Australia that shows a outdoor motion camera, and it's trained onto a house, and it shows. I think it was on Reddit where it zips through so fast. It's only caught. Yeah, we've discussed it since. Yeah, but when you slow it down, it's a white oval. But what I found interesting, with its contour lines, you could barely make out, is that it has an ovoid shape to it, which is a natural flow and shaping something that it always comes to rest in one position, no matter which way you turn it and flip it and whatever, or set it down. It always rights itself, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was like an oval, but it had two swoop middle from the front. They have to be aerodynamic, but I've seen that picture in antiquity, like on scarabs of a stone glyphs and carvings and things that had some significance to it. And it may just be symbolic on the shape of the craft, but nature is very efficient. It finds what works best and goes with it. Just like things traveling in the most energy conserved routes and things, of an arc and whatever. It just showed another mimicry of nature in something that's artificial, most likely. A lot of debate out there, obviously, that it was a bug, whatever you want to call it. But when you can vector in the distance from the camera from the building, and I went so far as to pull up the make and model of the camera and how many frame rates per second that it was able to record and refresh at. We got down to some pretty detailed information on the capacity of the camera, and we know the scale, the size of the car and the building, so we could calculate how how far the camera was and what its angle of view was, like 120 degrees. We were able to calculate the size of it out. That was like maybe probably about 10 feet across. Maybe was about it. And I think I don't remember the exact speed, but it was well over 1,000 miles an hour. Maybe not. I think now that's the one that's 2,300 miles an hour coming across the valley. This one was going several hundred miles an hour, and it wasn't as big. But those are the ones that, if somebody was going to spoof it and try and fake it, that ain't the way you do it. That's just not. It's too natural. It's got too much flow to it. To if you're gonna get, and we've seen people that intentionally create fakes to show how it's done for learning purposes. So yeah, things like that. You don't go in trouble to have that little, almost of nothing to talk about there. That adds to legitimacy. Just like with Gary Nolan's accounting of his of the incidents where when he was little that he had grays coming into his room and things of that nature. I'll try and put it in the community section. It was a fascinating report written by somebody in the intelligence community that did discuss how the mind tries to make sense of things in a very shocking situation. The more shocking it is to the mind, the more scrambled it's going to be in their account of it. And probably in every accounting they give, it's not going to be the same ever twice exactly. The essence is going to be the same, but the minutia, the details are going to fluctuate. And that's what we see with Gary's account. That's what we see with a lot of people's accounts, is the more shocking to the senses it was, the less accurate they were on the peripherals of the details. But that's, I want to post that report up because it's important. And I did put it out on Twitter, aspects of that psychology of it in a tweet. I'll be more prepared next time my basement didn't flood ahead of time. But it's important, the psychology of it, because there are so many experiencers in this community, and even on the panel tonight, which, Xavier, some of you guys, feel free to chime in here. Because, is it not accurate to say that when it's that shocking of a experience, that you're not going to ever tell it the same way twice, verbatim? It's going to have some nuances that are not going to be consistent in the telling, but the major outline framework is going to be accurate. And it kind of reminds me of like when my brother had a home invasion many years ago. They rushed in the door. It was in the middle of the night. He was half asleep. Before he even knew what hit him, they come up from behind, literally pulled him off the couch, had him on the floor, and were just one of them was sitting on his chest, beating him almost to death. And he was beaten unconscious, broke his nose, broke his eye socket, had a horrible concussion. Obviously, had a knife mark on his throat where they had held the knife blade up to it. So when he tried to tell the police afterwards what happened, he thought it was one person that he had recognized from before, and he told the police officer, well, I think it was such and such, and he threatened to kill me and did it this way. And then when he remembered some more details, he called him back and said, hey, wait a minute, I think it was this way instead, and it might have been this other person that I'm remembering now. And he came back for a third time and changed his story enough that the officers and the prosecuting attorney said, look, you on the witness stand, you've changed, you have altered your story enough that we couldn't get a prosecution, and we don't think you're telling the truth now. But when he finally remembered, it was actually 3 people that had him down in the floor threatening to kill him, not one. And he was right. He just remembered each person. The brain, you have the intellectual self and the emotional self. The intellectual self always stays as one entity, but like with multiple personality disorder, people that can split into more than one, the intellectual self will keep creating emotional selves that can take the place of the one that was there originally. When they can't handle it emotionally, they check out, and the intellectual self replaces it with another alter that can handle it, that's designed to. But in my brother's case, he dissociated from it, and the details came back as he was able to emotionally cope with the trauma that he experienced. So as he tells it each time, and I have found this consistent with other people that have experienced trauma like that, each time they come out and share it, it helps them cope a little bit more with the emotional trauma, and the details are going to evolve. They're going to remember more as their mind allows them to cope with it, and it's going to trickle out a little more information at a time. So it is consistent to have these little inconsistencies as he's coming out, like with Gary Nolan now, and sharing his experience. Each time he shares it, it's going to evolve. And some people will accuse him of embellishing it and trying to build it up and make it something it wasn't. Because at the start, he just said a few things about it. And 5 months down the road, we've got all these other details now that weren't there originally. Well, that's because as he's telling it, a person is coping with the trauma and able to get past it a little bit more at a time, to where the intellectual self allows them to remember more details of it. So that is a natural progression of memory that is consistent of somebody that has experienced extreme trauma. And we need to remember that. They're not going to be giving a 100% verbatim statement at the start and it never changes. That's not organic. That's not authentic. Not with an emotional event of that magnitude.
Yep. Luckily, I've never been a victim of such a crime. It's mind blowing. Just horrible. I don't think anybody be doing that in my house anytime soon with my dog in here. That he'll eat them up.
Nope.
Yep.
I unfortunately went through some significant abuse when I was a kid. I grew up in East LA in a bad neighborhood. I know what it's like to be a minority because there was only 5 of us white kids in a mostly Hispanic neighborhood. And it's natural when you're the majority that there are going to be some people in there that are prejudiced against the minorities, because racism isn't, it's colorblind. It doesn't choose which race that it will redirection. It's not exclusive to one demographic and race. And I'm not trying to get political. I'm just saying it's natural human behavior. The majority, there are going to be some people in there that don't have the compassion and integrity to not abuse the situation. They're like, well, I was abused and I was a minority, so now that it's my turn to control, I'm going to take advantage of that and I'm going to abuse somebody else. It's like in the Bible that says, the sins of the father will follow him into the 3rd generation. It took me a while to figure out what that meant. If somebody suffers abuse and they don't break the cycle, they're going to pass it along to their kids and their grandkids if they don't break the cycle. So what I learned from some from my stepmonster and other people growing up of what not to do and how to treat people. I know what it's like to be the victim. I hated it. So when I was able to turn around and get control of my environment, not only help myself out of it, anybody else that was ever in my purview that didn't start it and couldn't finish it, I would for them. I can't walk away when somebody's yelling for help. I've been there when nobody answered that call. I'm not one of those people that are just going to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect by any means, and I'm not claiming to be a saint. I just know what's human decency and what's not. And, I try to be a decent person. That's all I can say. But we're going to have inconsistencies with people coming out and telling their accounts. And I think this is important. And I'm going to state this again. I want to share the article, and I'm going to share some more on the psychology of it, because in the coming months and year or so, it's going to be very important when this is finally acknowledged by the government that we're dealing with a non-human presence that is sentient and far above us in intelligence and capabilities. There's going to be a lot of people having trouble coping with that are fresh into this conversation, and even some that are in it for a long time. When that realization is finally gone from speculation and fantasy and LARPing into reality, they're going to need counseling. They're going to need structure into whatever their beliefs are, or if they don't have any beliefs, they're going to need peers and to go to for counseling. They're going to need to form groups that share their ideologies, whether it's a church or community hall or, a meditation, whatever. We need to set up the framework. And Ted Rowe was talking about this also recently with NARCAP, that focusing on the psychological aspects up front to set that framework up is going to be vital. We have to manage our expectations, because there are so many people. Every single one of us is going to have a different interpretation of what we think these non-human intelligences are, what they represent, and what disclosure means. Some people think that it's going to move us to the next consciousness, and that it's going to take away all strife, pain, conflict. And, I wish that were true, in the flesh and on earth. But it's never been that way in history. Well, and we've been dealing with the phenomena. I wouldn't say dealing. We've been interacting with it as long as man's been able to chalk it out on cave walls from the start. We have been interacting with these non-human intelligences in many different forms, from gods to aliens. And as we want to advance disclosure and spread the word, we don't want to traumatize people and not have a framework set up to catch them when they fall, because they will. We need to recognize who our leaders are in that. And I'm not talking government leaders. I'm talking community, civic leaders, people and, religious leaders. And then not just talking Judeo beliefs, anything, Buddhism, you name it. I don't care what it is, as long as it's positive and it's promoting love thy neighbor and being charitable, I'm on board with it. But we have to have that component here. We can't just focus on disclosure and coming out and say, hey, here it is. They've acknowledged that it's non-human intelligences behind all this. We don't know what it is, and it's scary and sorry, but we don't have anybody to direct you to help sort it out in your head. There's going to be a lot of very disturbed people from this. And we, as a community, we have to be cognizant of that. If we want the responsibility of advancing disclosure, also have responsibility teachers to set up some kind of framework to help people cope with the new changing environment that we're encountering. That's going to be critical to people, because if they can't accept the truth and it's too scary for them, they're going to have a cognitive dissonance where they're going to not accept it no matter what evidence you show. If it doesn't directly come into their environment and interact with them personally, there's going to be a lot of people that will dissociate it for the duration of their lives. And that's okay. That's how they cope. But for the ones that do try to accept it, they're going to need people there to help explain it to them. And like Lou came out saying a while back with the Lakota conversation he had, that the Sky Brothers were just as natural to them as the bees and the buffalo, and nothing to be afraid of. So, they were putting Lou's anxieties to rest with those conversations. He's not beyond the anxieties that we feel as well. Um, we're all human here, and unless you're a sociopath and not capable of feeling emotion, um, we've got to stay mindful of this. That it's not if, it's when the government finally acknowledges these are non-human intelligences we're dealing with, and there may be a element of danger to it because we're on the brink of a nuclear war that could decimate the planet, and not just us. And I know people are sick of hearing me say this, and don't agree with me. That's fine. This is just my opinion. But from my studies of ancient history, along with some of the finest team members on the planet, and talking to some of the most brilliant minds, I don't claim to be one of them. I just have a good memory to remember what they told me. And, we're reaching another tipping point as a civilization that we're going to have to change our ways of being good stewards to this planet, or there's going to have to be some adjustments made. And those are not historically good adjustments that have been taking place. And we should have been having this conversation as a species, the whole of us, 75 years ago, and even 55 years ago at the last congressional hearings. We could have been discussing the aspects of the nuclear dangers with all the nuclear products that are civilian and military. And we're 75 years behind that conversation because some people chose to keep them quiet and in these dark silos and things. And I understand that part of it is for national security, and I respect that aspect of it. But the aspect of it that survivability as a human species, if they are telegraphing that they have a concern about the nuclear capabilities and our propensity for war, and that's not fanciful and out of the realm of possibilities for me to consider such. There are a lot of people that think like I do, and it's not that I enjoy war or fighting. I hate it. But if you don't have the ability to defend yourself, people are going to take advantage of that. So it's a necessary evil to be strong and capable of defending oneself or their country or whatever. But having it and displaying it like with mutually assured destruction. Thank God we didn't ever have to launch in the Cold War to have that nuclear exchange. It was very unfortunate in World War II that we had to drop the bombs that we did. But if we hadn't, it would have cost probably millions of Allied lives trying to take mainland China and over a year of protracting the war out. I'm not saying I agree with the bombing, but I understand why they made the decision they did. There's no 100% right answer to those kinds of decisions. Some you just have to make it and go with it, and not look back, because you got a very small window to make a decisive choice, because the worst decision is no decision. So on the fly, do the best you can with what you have to work with. I respect that aspect of it. It was an extremely unfortunate event to have to ever use the bombs. I hate that aspect of it. But at the time they thought that it was necessary, because after we've already seen with Iwo Jima and other islands that we had to take, we lost 15,000 Marines, I think it was, on Iwo Jima. And Tarawa was even worse, with the human toll on both sides. It was just some of the most gruesome, violent warfare. Shield wall warfare was horrific, but that paled compared to what they did with the island hopping. And war sucks, period. And you see a lot of the hardware behind me. It's because I'm defensive in nature. I've never started a fight but I'm not going to be a victim again. And I refuse to let people I love, or anybody for that matter, be victimized by people that are going to try and take advantage of them. And we as a species need to get our shit together and figure out what message they're trying to telegraph, and chill the hell out. We're not going to deproliferate unless we have an outside referee to come in and step up and do it for us, to force us to. Reagan was onto something when he stated that we would forget our differences as different nations if we recognize we're facing one common foe. And if you want to put stock into what Jacques Vallée says, that a lot of this phenomena that we experience is actually one that's manifesting in many different ways to try and guide humanity and to elicit a response in different ways at different times for different people. If it's eliciting, trying to get a response for us to pay attention to the nuclear assets and give the illusion that it is presenting as a danger, so we will change our ways, that might not be such a bad thing if it causes us to do a course correction as a species and tone it down and try and work together for once. And if we have the perception that the chance we're being attacked, and it pulls us together as a civilization as a whole, and nothing to that, then no harm, no foul. It served its intended purpose, possibly, and no actual combat or adversity was actually ever manifest with these non-human intelligences. It may be trying to get us to step up and perceive that there's a threat, so we'll take action to neutralize our aspect that would present ourselves as a threat to it. And I think that's part of what we're seeing is they're presenting as a potential threat to get us to step up our game and figure out what we think that they are not happy about and correct it. If it's our nuclear weapons and shit, let's get together as a species. And if they want to present themselves in the sky as saying, hey, we're going to annihilate humanity if you don't get rid of your nukes, I'm all on board with that. Go for it. At this point,
we had this conversation, Rob. We had this conversation. I told you what it reminded me of is if just like Superman and the Quest of Peace, where Superman basically told the world, I've had enough. He took all the nukes, put them in a big net, and threw them into the sun. It's almost like we need a Superman. We need somebody to come and do that, because we're not going to give up our nukes, are we?
Not unless other nations do, but how can you trust they actually did it? We can't. Unless we have an outside referee, or unless we have an outside influence that looks like it's going to be a threat to humanity, and it gives us an ultimatum, say, hey, get rid of your nukes or we're going to destroy you all. I think that'd get people starting to hop, wouldn't you, in the right direction? Somebody is asking in the chat, how do I reply to people on here? If you're on a laptop, you just put the @ symbol and start typing their name, and then it'll autofill that, and you can reply to them that way. If you're, or you can copy it and paste it as a reply with the @ symbol to their name. And question for us, we'll try and read it in all caps. I know I'm on a tangent, but this is something I think it's one of the most. This burden that I feel about the nuclear weapons is something that really is a preoccupation of intellectual energy for me to. It's one of the biggest things on my mind perpetually. That has this whole narrative of non-human intelligences. I'm looking at defending the human race because I care. I don't want to see people destroyed and die. When I was 13 years old, I remember a vivid dream I had where I saw the nuclear mushroom cloud go off, and I turned around to run, and I could feel the heat knocking me face down on the ground from the blast wave of it. And I woke up screaming. I'll never forget that ever. And that's part of what motivates me now with the nuclear things, the nuclear topic, is that we're screwing up bad. And it's apparent they will allow us to annihilate each other, but they won't allow us to annihilate this planet. It's a work of art. Why would they let us destroy their home too? It doesn't make any sense. Can I prove it? No, but it's logical and it's reasonable. So, that's what motivates me. I don't want to see us perish as a civilization. And it's happened several times over in the past when, it states that humanity got too wicked and no good left among them. Those civilizations aren't around anymore. And you can speculate how you want. I have my personal religious beliefs. And that's fine. People can believe what they choose. I respect that wholeheartedly. But at the end of the day, you've got to have compassion for your fellow man. We've got to be good stewards of this planet. It's the only planet we have. It's our home. We're hurling through space at, I think it's like 60 something thousand miles an hour. We are on a spaceship, but we share it with a lot of other living organisms. And I dare say they've been here for millions of years, some of them. They're not going to go gently into that good night just because we want to be idiots. And we're allowing just a few people as heads of our governments to make those decisions for us. Shame on us for not making more noise to change that situation. But on the same, on the other side of that coin, we're living our daily lives trying to eke out an existence and put food on the table, take care of health issues. Obviously, the older we get, the worse it gets. So it's, we rely on our elected officials to do the right thing because we don't have the time to address it. We do have to take responsibility, do our due diligence to make sure our elected officials are the best that we have to choose from. And if the selection is bad across the board, then we do have to allow that inconvenience into our own lives to go out and make a change. Otherwise, we can shut up and sit down and stop complaining because we didn't do anything about it, when we had the opportunity. So, I wanted to catch up. Lunar Conduit is saying that is on the phone. I'm not sure to who. Let me catch up here, folks. Shannon, you got some things to say there, bro?
Sure, I'll get everybody an update what's going on with me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to announce I'm no longer hospitalized. There we go. So I am kind of still under care. I've got a PICC line, and that's my umbilical cord, and it goes to a bag of antibiotics. And I'm going to have that for like 10 days, I think. Something like that. Whatever they say, right? So that's the update on me. And then I'm still scheduled to go in like 3 weeks to go to Orlando. So I'll be still trying to make videos with Rob there. I do some live broadcasting on location. We also have one more UAP this evening video that I found that's interesting. And I want y'all to look at it and tell me what you think about it as well. And let's catch up on. Oh yeah, please, yes, Lou for Congress, folks. I got a banner around here for that somewhere. See if I can find it real quick. Where's my? Oh, here it is. Boom, Lou for Congress, folks. Hashtag Lou for Congress. He broke that story here. The last interview he did a long time ago on this channel. And he said that he is thinking about running for Congress. So when he said that, I said, hashtag Lou for Congress. Hashtag, okay. Also, let's take a look at the chat.
Yeah. Xavier is asking, what do I think? It didn't look like any drone he was aware of. Which footage are you talking about? And by the way, glad that you're here, all of you actually. But so I'm not playing favorites, but I do recognize some familiar names that that I have some history with, that I am excellent. Yeah, I'm glad that they have showed up to partake of the show as well. And I'm trying to catch up with what Lunar Conduit is saying. Xavier, which one did you not think was the drone that you'd ever seen in regard to? Was it one of the videos that Shannon showed tonight? And Christian Morales, good, but I want Elizondo to know that we got his back. I feel like some people are out for revenge for everything they did to Lou. I know revenge isn't good, but sometimes just for one day. The situation with Richard Butt, he forced Luis Jimenez to. Luis did not tell the truth, and Richard called him on it to stand on integrity. So now Jimenez is mad at him for that. He needs to be mad at himself, and I don't see that that's Richard bullying him to have done that, because if he hadn't posted the message from Lou and Jimenez, I was going to, because Lou gave me his permission to share it to prove his innocence, and that's the only reason he would have shared somebody's private conversation, was to defend himself in that capacity, to right a wrong, and that I think is excusable on that, because otherwise, I've told people, even if we become abject enemies, I will not betray your confidences. It's just not right, unless you're accused of something and you have to defend yourself that is relevant. And at that instant, it was relevant. It was unfortunate. I hated to see this happen to Jimenez. I think he's done a great deal for this conversation. But he ran afoul for whatever reason, just like we've seen Green Street Drew and Greenwald. Some people don't handle power well, and when they got too big for their britches, and they paid a price for it. I try to stay. I'm just a messenger, and I try to stay as humble as I possibly can. I don't have any authority to speak on. I have opinions. I pay attention to people. I listen. And I happen to have a good memory, so I can remember a lot of stuff, which, is one of the reasons that I'm effective at being able to share information from others that do know what the hell they're talking about. And I recognize good leadership and honest people when I see them. So, that's why I'm not a Lou worshiper by any means. I see that he's not perfect, but he's an excellent leader, and he's made for an excellent friend. He's a man of integrity. And those are the type of officers that I would have gladly followed into the pits of hell and back and never asked a question, because I trusted their leadership ability. They had to make the hard decisions based on the information they knew, because at the ground level, as an infantry and enlisted, you're not going to be privileged to all the information that they make their decisions on. They have to have operational security. So you got to trust your leaders that they're making the right decisions and just go with it. That's just the nature of how it works, with civilian or military. You just got to follow good leaders and know what they look like when you see them.
I agree with that. So a little backstory here. What happened was I'm kind of I couldn't say I'm new with Twitter. I mean, I've been tweeting for years, but the thing is, I don't have that many posts and I don't read that many. I just happen to look at UAP, UFO, UFO Twitter on Twitter, and I saw this story that Rob is talking about, and I asked him, "What's going on with this?" I didn't feel like reading it. I asked Rob. I went straight to him. He knows what's going on. So that's how I kind of knew what was going on, and it looks like he's going after who is Richard Butt. Well, good luck on that.
That's unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. Richard called him out on his bullshit, and I was going to do the same thing because I had a copy of it too, to prove Lou's innocence. And if you can't see that was the right thing to do, and they're trying to say, well, it's that Lou was getting revenge, by bullying him because of the squidding thing. No, it had nothing to do with that. Luis Jimenez was the head of his YouTube channel, like you're the head of this channel. You're the captain of this ship, and ultimately, what happens here is ultimately your responsibility. So if I run afoul, it's your place to have to set it right. And with squidding, yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking questions and being a skeptic, but you still have to be respectful. And people still mischaracterize what Lou said that day in the exchange with squidding, is that Lou never admitted to having that, the faceless bureaucrat or whatever it was. Lou did not say that that was his account ever. And people are getting that wrong. And I'm not going to get back on the drama again. I just want to state that aspect of it, that no, he did acknowledge that he's an intelligence person, and in times past, that they do gather intelligence and they do use, it is a method to use alternate accounts and things in anonymity, but there's no evidence by squidding to show that Lou or anyone else in the intelligence community ever used a sock puppet account, as he calls them, to create dissension and sow discord and manipulation among the community. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. None that I'm aware of. And so they mischaracterized him on that again. And that's unfair to Lou. He's done more for disclosure than any other singular person, period. The only person that comes close is Christopher Mellon. Yeah, but yeah, and Jacques Vallée, it's probably, him and Hal Puthoff are probably the two most brilliant people still alive, or ever for that matter, alive or dead, that know more about what the
Rob, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Check out this. Please respond. I'm very interested in your response to this. If you can look up on the screen.
Okay, hang on one second. And we want to get back to the somber. What's it said? NeoCal.
Dude is 100% federal counterintelligence.
Who?
I guess Lou. That's all I'm getting. Lou's at 100% a federal. Am I getting this right, NeoCal? Dude is 100% federal counterintelligence agent.
I'm getting buffering.
Okay.
Counterintelligence is not psyops, man. I mean, you evidently don't know what that means. Intelligence is going out, gathering intelligence from other nations, so we know what they're doing. Counterintelligence is going out to other nations and trying to ascertain what they know about us. So that's not psyops. It's against the law, like Jim Simovan even stated, that was one of the heads in the CIA at the time, that it is against the law to do psyops on the American people in public. What the Air Force did for 75 years on the UAP topic and UFOs was illegal. I think after Watergate, those laws changed, and that made that illegal. But no, Lou's not ever ran a psyop on the American people. It's against the law.
No.
He would lose his clearance and he would have been charged for that.
Very good, Rob. He's now correcting. I'm referring to squidding. I don't think squidding's counterintelligence. I think he was just being
a dick, dictator. Yeah, I'm not being critical of you, NeoCal. I'm just trying to. I'm not meaning to sound harsh towards you. I hear this a lot of people saying, "We'll lose a disinformation and counterintelligence." Two completely different things. And as I've said before, Susan Go is psyops. She wrote a paper in 2003 which states herself in her own words that you cannot separate psyops and public interface, as being a government official interfacing with the public. You cannot separate the duties of liaison with the American people and psyops. They are one and the same. And you can easily find that paper she wrote from 2003. And if you're having a problem finding it, I can find a link in a heartbeat. That is what psyops is. And if you actually take the time to read that paper and see what her methodologies are, you can identify who people are that are actually trying to run psyops on others, whether they're part of the government, the military, or just being jackasses and doing it on their own behalf or their own little cliques. You can recognize by educating yourselves on what psyops actually is and the methods they use, and then you'll be able to see it with a little more clarity. That ain't Lou, and it's illegal. As much as the DoD wants to pull his security clearance, if he were caught doing anything, he would have lost his clearance by now. So just by default that he still has it is testimony that he's telling the truth and not working a psyop, because they damn sure aren't sanctioning him. He's no longer, a direct employee of the Pentagon. He's an independent contractor now. So he's keeping it real, and they as much as they, like he said, he is under persistent evaluation, which means they are continually looking at his financials, his relationship, his wife's financials. Everything they do is under the microscope. If their credit score gets below a certain rate, below a certain level, if they get overextended on their credit, whatever, those are potential breaches that make him vulnerable as a security risk, and he loses that. So he's got, they have a very invasive lifestyle because of that clearance, where they're under the microscope like you wouldn't believe. I wouldn't want to live like that. He's doing this because, people say that he left the Pentagon and that, people have called him a hero for stepping out to do what he did. And they're claiming bullshit on that that doesn't make him a hero, going to a government job into a cush, private endeavor with, to the Stars Academy where he was making huge bank. That's not accurate, folks. Lou is not the first one to be in a government classified UFO program investigating the phenomena that found out there was something there to it and stood up and made some noise. Well, he's the first one to stand up. We had Project Blue Book, where Hynek and them knew that the phenomena was real, and even Condon, that wrote the report, if you'll go back and read it, he actually states one of the cases likely was non-human intelligences behind it. He did not deny that it existed. The verbiage states that they didn't see anything that was relative to national security or an advancement in science at that time that would warrant further study of the phenomena, which was saying in layman's terms, they couldn't figure it out with present technology and physics as they knew it. And their scientists, let's revisit this from time to time with new physics and see if that changes. And if something shifts on the threat side of it, then let's reinvestigate that. But they never did really stop investigating it. They just went underground. But Condon himself was honest in his report. I went back and read it, and they say that the Air Force and stuff authored it, but attribute it to him in that study that the Yale, I think it was, did. It was actually a good report that he wrote, and I think he was very honest in the parts that he could be honest in. And technically, them saying that they didn't see a security threat with UFO, people misunderstood that as saying that there's nothing to the phenomenon, that it's all mundane. No, that's not what it says at all. It's saying see it as a threat to national security, and there was nothing significant to be gleaned out of it in the aspect of advanced technologies, because they pushed it to the envelope of what they could figure it out at the time, and they exhausted that according to what his perspective of what they let him see. So from his vantage point, he spoke the truth as far as he knew from the information he had at the time to share. So it did state that likely one case, and it was the one from 1973 or 4, off on the it's on a military base in England where they had multiple bogies coming in off the ocean that had significant different independent data sets that came to bear on that. They had planes in the sky that saw them. They had multiple radar stations. They had people, observation towers that saw it, aircraft, ships. There was multiple data points that were independent of each other. They were all corroborating the same perspective of these giant craft that were in some points separate from each other, and in other instances came together on the radar screen. And there was no mundane explanation whatsoever for that event that they find. They could not dismiss it as swamp gas, a runaway kite, a Piper plane that lost their navigation. No, that was the one that was like the Nimitz encounter. There were too many eyes on it, too many different independent systems of signals intelligence. They couldn't deny the existence of it. You had American troops and you had English troops there and civilians to corroborate it. They couldn't sweep that one under the rug like they did so many others. There was just too much overwhelming evidence. So that one was authenticated. And I'd like to go back and cover that in one of our next broadcasts to discuss that event, because that's the one that Condon brought out as the one that was most legitimate in his eyes, that couldn't be dismissed as human or a natural occurrence. And that was the real deal to him of an example of a non-human intelligence at work. And the evidence is there. And I'm sure that there's been additional evidence to come out on it since then. So it would be, that is one of the, in his estimation at the time before, now is obviously before the Nimitz, the best provable case that's out there that the public has access to the information on. So I would like to bring that up and go over it and point out how many different people and systems were in play to corroborate that story. And that's what we need. And that's why when Lou said he wanted to burn ufology down, it wasn't that he didn't like the community, didn't like the people in it. For the most part, he believes, like a lot of people do, there's a lot of good people in this community. They mean well, but there are a few people that don't mean well. They're trying to control the narrative. And the Air Force was part of those people creating the disinformation for 75 years to throw people off the trail of accuracy. When they did get it right, they were made to think you were crazy. Yeah. So, we want to, he didn't want to burn ufology down. What he wanted to do was, I look at this like classical physics and modern physics. In 1905, Einstein came out with general relativity. Everything prior to that was classical physics. He retooled it with newest information and more modern facts to bear and understanding. And that's where the birth of modern physics comes in. At 2017, with that New York Times article, when they actually named that the U.S. had a UFO program, that was the first factual evidence since the Condon Report in 1969, where the U.S. government admitted that the phenomena is real to the public. So that, to me, is the start of modern ufology and investigations. What he wanted to burn down was all of the disinformation, obfuscation, and confusion that predecessed that, because there's too much good data coming in now that isn't sullied and obfuscated, that we can use as examples to study, like the case I was talking about just a minute ago that I want to go over. That is a legacy case, but there's still a lot of good information out there to enhance the story and get it more accurate and examine it as, what kind of cases do we want to look at to try and understand this better, and not just prove that it exists. I think we're past that in the conversation as a whole. He doesn't want to destroy ufology and the people in it because he disrespects them. He wants to get rid of all the bad information and recognize the bad actors that have taken advantage of it for so long, because there were no facts to fact check them with. Now there are. And that's the change in the game here. It's not a game anymore. And that's the distinction he was trying to draw, that people jumped on and, again, tried to control the narrative and make it into something it was not. He wants authenticity and accuracy and facts to be brought into the conversation. Prior to 2017, that luxury wasn't there. And what I was trying to say earlier about Lou and why he resigned from the Pentagon is that the only legal way he could ethically and ethically get it up the chain of command to Mattis that there is a potential security breach here that is larger than anything. It could be potentially larger than Pearl Harbor or 9/11, the failure of intelligence by the United States. And in that regard, he was talking about if this is an adversarial technologies and that the whole of government and the DoD aren't aware of this, if this is one of our adversaries, we're screwed, and we need to get all eyes on deck to address this. And he couldn't get it up the chain of command through official channels, according to the UCMJ, that wouldn't violate his oath of enlistment and his NDA to the American people, not the government, but to the American people, the promise he made to us. So the only way he could do it was with Christopher Mellon. They devised the plan that his resignation letter, wording it exactly how he did, he was able to tell Mattis in doing that and not violate his oath to the American people and his NDA. So he had to sacrifice his career, and there were people that advised him that as young as he was and as senior as he was moving up the ladder, he was throwing away a very lucrative career in the government because he was a man of character and excelled at what he did and was an excellent, he had a superior skill set that he could have, in the IG report, we saw what we don't want in our DoD leadership with Gary Reed. Lou exemplified what we do want, and I'm not putting him on a pedestal as making him a demigod. I'm not. He's fallible and he makes mistakes, but in his official capacity, he's exceptional as being efficient and a leader. And that's what he did, was lead by example. He resigned and lost all that potential that he could have gained if he had shut up and sat down like his predecessors that learned the truth did. They didn't want to rock the boat. So they shut up, sat on their hands, kept their stars, and nothing to see here, and did not alert the whole of government to this potential security risk. And he's the first one to stand up and refuse to be silent. And people want to vilify him for that. That's bullshit. So, yeah, he resigned to continue the mission, to fulfill his oath to the American people, to protect them. Because, I'm going to tell people something. When, he served under Mattis in theater, in combat. And when you serve in those capacities, you lose a lot of friends, a lot of your fellow soldiers that die trying to complete the mission. This even just sanctity of wanting to honor their sacrifice, you are not going to violate your oath of enlistment and your promise to the American people and your promise to your fellow soldiers, brethren, that paid the ultimate sacrifice. You're not going to sully and tarnish their sacrifices and lie and not follow through and continue the mission to protect the American people and our government, not our government, but our nation, to the best of his ability. The best of his ability was resigning to continue the mission. That's why he did it. And it was a personal sacrifice. I don't give a damn what some people think. TTSA was a vehicle to help get the word out. It wasn't that he was offered a lucrative TV and movie deal, so he gave up his career for it. No, that's not how it played out. TTSA was a helpful vehicle to get the message out until there was a change in directive where they wanted to go toward the entertainment side. So yeah, he had a parting of ways with them because they want to focus on the message. And, there again, he's playing off integrity along with the people he's working with. So, they're all working for the betterment of humanity, and they have sacrificed. When Lou stepped away from TTSA, it broke part of his contract. And I don't understand all the specifics. I don't know all the specifics. I know the gist of it, that when he stepped away, then he lost a huge chunk of his income. And with Gary Reed soft blocking him in the intelligence community with his, every time he would try to engage into a conversation that would advance him in the intelligence community to get work, Gary Reed had a memo in there when somebody would run his clearance to say, hey, give me a call if you're running his clearance. We need to talk. And he was illegally and unethically blocking Lou from getting work, which is in his IG complaint. And that investigation isn't done yet. The reasons that Gary Reed is no longer in his position is because the portions of the IG complaints to that date were significant enough to finally remove him from his office station. That portion was settled to move him where they did the DIA, and he probably is just serving by name only with no duties and just drawing a paycheck. But there are still aspects of it, of that complaint, that are still active and ongoing that they can't comment on, and neither can Lou. It's still in play. It's still a legitimate complaint. If Lou had lied on that, he would be the one being investigated. His clearance would be gone now, and he would be under investigation and not a relevant player anymore. So there again, if the IG complaint were false and Lou made false statements, ergo, no clearance again.
Yeah. Man, well said. Can you believe an hour and 41 minutes has went by there, Rob? I need to go ahead and show that other video real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Don't go nowhere. Here we go.
I'm just ranting like a lunatic, man.
No, hey, we're all listening, man. Because there's no way I can hang with you with that. That's cool. That's cool. That's right. That's right. And it's like these things that you've told me 100 times. But I'm glad you're able to tell these folks here. Okay, folks, what I've been trying to do lately is go on YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, and see if there's any new videos that come out. This one came out a few days ago, and I thought it was interesting enough to show it here on the show today. And tell me your comments in the comment. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. All right, so it's a minute and 31 seconds. You ready? Mark, set, go. Now, if you look right there, you'll start seeing them. And so I started watching these things, and they weren't moving like birds, right? Just because you'll have some of them kind of going up. You got some coming up from the bottom, and you got some from the top going down. And it's like, and of course, we get the person's not looking at their camera when they're videoing. They're looking, with their eyes, and they're not looking properly. By the way, this is in portrait mode. It's better, my opinion, if you have it in landscape mode. That means you turn the camera 90 degrees and we get to see the horizon a lot better. You know what? I don't even think this video is great because, there it is. You start seeing them a little bit better in this one. So I have no idea what the heck these things are because they kind of come and go. But the resolution on this is not as good as the one on YouTube or Twitter or wherever I saw it.
Hey, Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. I didn't see it.
Dave.
Hey, guys. Hey, Dave. Glad to see you in the chat, man.
Yep. So I take that back. It really wasn't a great video, but when I saw it in high resolution, it looked a lot better. I can't have a high resolution video like that on here because it won't allow me to load it up for you guys to view. So my apologies, but I thought it was good enough to put up there. Has anybody seen this video? What'd you think about it? Put in the comment section down below. While we have almost 20 people in the watching us live, we are just 140 something subscribers away for getting this channel opened up so we can start getting super chats and all the money going to charity. If you don't know, of course y'all know. I'm going to tell you again. all the money goes to. This is it. That's us. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Shannon Scott's annual Vets and Vets for Wounded Vets and Pets fundraiser. It's a fundraiser um, by Lou Elizondo for some pets in Buffalo, Wyoming. It's for some pinup vets that Rob's sponsoring here, and I'm going to be supporting the Wounded Warrior Project. So all around great charity, 100%, including your super chats. So if you want to help out in the future, you're gonna have to hook us up with some super chats. Like to see some money flow. More information about the charity coming up. Some more information. Rob and I will have our own uniform. I bought us uniforms, right? We got our hats coming, and it's black, and it says military witness to UAP, and we got collared shirts, so we could look squared away out here, and it's going to have our logo on the left side. It's going to have military witnesses to UAP, and underneath it, continuing the conversation, meaning that Lou Elizondo started the conversation. We're just picking up the torch and continuing the conversation while he rides off into the sunset. And that's what that's all about, folks. If you don't know already, UFO Expo is now.com. That thing is now moved from Boohoo, Palm Coast, just south of Jacksonville, where I had my tickets and room reserved, ready to go. And it looks like the folks at Roswell sponsoring UFO Expo. So it was the smart thing that it's been moved. So maybe next time. I would love to go out there, but my health is not good enough. Maybe next year. So I'd really like to just show up. Heck, Rob and I could probably be a speaker next year, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Lunar Conduit. Do I know you personally? Because you say you're on. I'm on phone. I do know a person with that type of chromosomal abnormality. So I wonder if you're a friend of mine that I'm not going to name for your privacy. But I think if that's what you're trying to telegraph to me, I'm tracking. And the thing about hybrid is we don't have definitive alien DNA to compare to say that a human is now a hybrid. And I'm not denying that there are hybrid humans. We just don't have factual data yet that's publicly available to say this is alien DNA, this is human DNA, and we can compare the two. That's what Gary Nolan stated, was that we need an example that we can have the chain of custody to verify that that's a non-human example and to compare it to. I do believe that it's my personal belief that we weren't created by these, but they can damn sure tamper with our DNA and do some really strange stuff. We've seen examples of chimera in the past that are left in stone with a lot of the Opkalu bulls and things like that. Opsalu, whatever they call them, where they really made some freaky shit. They really got stoned and went crazy in the chemistry lab a few times. Trying to make light of it, but somebody was wanting to talk about the somber of Lou, and I think maybe you can help with you, Shannon. But I think what he's, and also in regard to his comment about not being at the top of the food chain anymore, I don't, for the most part, think that we're being eaten and that we're food stock so much as what that means. What I think of what it means is that for 80,000 years, like Lou had said, we thought we were in control of this planet and at the high, that we were the apex predator and in power. To learn that we are not the apex dominant species on the planet anymore, that in itself is going to be a somber realization. The mind fears what it doesn't recognize, and the more and I'm using the term alien generically, the more alien something is to a person, the more they tend to reject it. So something that is this alien to us, some people are going to reject, with their entire capacity and faculties. There's a reason, like Jacques Vallée states on the control system that I subscribe to a lot, that they're always just a little bit beyond what humanity is capable of or looks like. They're not like what we see in Alien and Predator and all these things that would just shock the conscience to see. For the most part, you get the grays and things that are kind of human looking, kind of not, but not enough to just cause abject terror and put somebody in a straitjacket the rest of their life, depending on how they're treated. But I think in the aspect of shocking the conscience, it's going to be sobering in just that capacity to understand that there are intelligent entities. Ultra terrestrials is a blanket term, all of it, gods, you name it, God, the God, whatever it is. That, for those of us, like me, the Christian faith, I believe that there's a God that has powers that can make things out of nothing, change reality, do miracles. Slide 9 talks about powers like that. That's God-like powers, like you were talking about with Superman getting rid of the nukes. It'd be something comparable to that. They could take things out of the quantum field. And I think what Gary Nolan was saying about the avatars is that they, this phenomena apparently could theoretically take things, quantum ingredients, and manifest things into the macro reality that looks like they were just poof and brought into existence out of nothing, where the occupant and the occupant is no more alive than the craft is. They are both artifacts of the phenomena to show something at the time, to elicit a response, because everything they do is calculated. And with them disappearing, whether they're going into another dimension or they're just evaporating because they can control time and mass and energy, we don't know. It's probably all the above at different instances, but they could manifest it instantaneously into our dimensional reality, and they could just as instantaneously dismantle it and poof, it's gone again, evaporated. They're not organic reproducing species like we are, that has a continuity of life, like the little people that we find evidence around the planet of. Those still are living beings that had communities and generational existence that coexisted with humanity for thousands of years, but they chose to go underground and disappear in the last 150 years or so. But they're finding archaeological evidence even up around Wyoming that there are entire civilizations of colonies of little people. They're like 18 inches tall. Their tools are being found, their communities, their, all the peripherals that they would have to show that it was not just a couple of people of a dwarfism, their entire communities of little people. And there's all kinds of legends in Native American, their history. I'm not going to call it their mythology, because they weren't myth to them. Their shamans still talk to them in their vision quests, and they lived alongside of them before a white man came along. And like Skara Brae in Scotland, and on Malta, on the Azores, there's many different communities they've uncovered, where the occupants in entire communities, and in China, were less than 3 feet tall, and in some instances less than 2 feet tall. They weren't just people that were dwarves and an aberration of a normal civilization. They were a different subspecies that did truly exist and probably still do. But, they decided, for whatever reason, if you read the book, The Chains of the Sea, that Lou recommended, it talks about how there are other species on this planet that hide from humans. They created, the humans created AI. The AI started talking to the new guys on the block that showed up, that came to correct the planet because humanity had gotten out of control. And they were in contact with the AI computers cutting deals they were also talking to these other cryptids that we would call them now, fairies, dwarves, elves, whatever. They were in communication with the AI and these others, cutting deals to try and survive, but they determined that humans needed to be dealt with in a different way. It's a very mind expanding book in several different instances of the science, the physics, of a 4-dimensional reality, being seen from a 3-dimensional reality that we are in. It stretches the imagination in many ways, and I think that's partly what Lou meant by somber. I was getting off track. It's that we're not in control like we thought we were. That in itself is a somber, sobering thought process. But for those that misunderstand this in their theology, that are grounded in faith like I am, they are not mutually exclusive. The two can coexist. If you believe that there is, call it source, call it God, call it whatever you want, if there was a creator being that created all else, that created the aliens that we're encountering and these ultra terrestrials, that fits. There's just no reason that the Bible would have to even mention that existed. Why would we need to know? We can't follow basic instructions. Why confuse us with things that even more complicated? So yeah, the somber, it's a paradigm shift as a civilization as a whole. In every capacity, it's going to have fundamental changes to our perception and our paradigm of our existing reality. That's a sober realization, however you want to slice it. And then that doesn't mean with disclosure that they're automatically going to come down, announce themselves, introduce who they are, and tell us their whole backstory, all backstory. We couldn't fact check them anyway if they did. There's no way we can do Snopes or fact.com on them. I keep saying it. I'll keep saying it again. The only way we truly know anything or anybody is not by what they say, but what they do, observing them over time. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't know what people are capable of until they're tested under pressure. And then we see their true nature. And that's the only way we will truly know what anything ever is. So the book is called Chains. It's a story in Chains of the Sea. I can probably get an electronic copy of it if people can't find it. I did find it on archive.org, I believe it is. You can type in Chains of the Sea PDF in Google, and it should pull up. There's like 5 or 6 stories in the book. I can't remember the exact name of it yet at the moment. I'm a little smoked, but I'm trying to catch up in the
great,
chat
Rob.
here.
Well, I'm glad
It always seems like there was.
I'm glad you're talking because I wasn't feeling 100% this evening. But it's called the Change of the Sea, right? Change of the Sea.
Yeah, Chains of the Sea. In that story, it also talks about a giant dragon that's under the down, and it gets loose and it's coming toward the shore, and they have to. I think some people were trying to save it, and the military was wanting to destroy it. There are parallels in the story, and I think what drew Lou to it is that there's so many different aspects of it. There's the physics aspect. There's the complex interspecies interactions. There's AI that's infused with it. You have 4D coming into a 3D reality. There's just so many things in play that stretch a person's imagination. And I think that was Lou's intent, was to get people thinking as abstract as possible. That start examining this phenomena. It may never come down and introduce itself, but because prior to the last flood around 3000 BC, there were little G gods that lived among man. I think the last generation of them were in India, and that's why their temples, for the most part, are still intact and weren't destroyed. The civilization was destroyed because they're not there anymore. And that's where Oppenheimer said, I have become death to the worlds, when they set off the Trinity bomb. he recognized from reading the Vedics that humanity has been here before in creating the atomic bomb. So, like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. And I think that's where Lou meant by somber. And what I was starting to say is, prior to that agreement being reset with how these phenomena are going to interact with humanity, prior to that, they were infusing us, building these megaliths, tipping the scales with different nations, giving them superior warfare technologies and other things. And they determined that this time around, we were going to evolve as a species without overt, direct intervention. And I think what we're seeing is rules of engagement where they are trying to be as minimally interactive with us as possible, but still express that they have a right to self-defense and to defend the planet. So they may, in some way deproliferate, and still never tell us who they are, what they are, why they're here, other than to do. That's entirely possible that could happen. We have to manage our expectations. We just don't know what to expect. But we do need to pay attention to what they're telegraphing. And the only way we can do that, in part, is if our government is honest with us about what it can share, so we understand the magnitude of what we are encountering, what they are trying to convey to humanity as a whole. Humanity as a whole has a right to know. And I think that, for me, is what disclosure means. From there, it's a personal pursuit, but as a civilization as a whole, we need to be told the truth. And I think that was Lou's biggest goal, is to get all of humanity educated on the topic, so we can make the decision as a species, not just a few people in dark places doing it for us. They shouldn't be allowed to represent us any longer in that capacity. And that's why they're pushing for disclosure. It should be all of our decision, not just a few people in closets and these smoking cigars making decisions for us. They don't have that right.
Well said. So earlier in the chat, someone was asking, I guess the question was, the general question was that a drone? I have no idea. I'd fly drones all the time, right? In fact, I came across a drone photo that I took. I took a picture of my drone, but this is unlike any other photo you've probably ever seen. This is a 30-second exposure to my drone, and I call it light art. So let's check that out. Bam. So there's somebody out there with a flashlight fiddle farting around on the beach, but I would fly my drone around and just do a long exposure, and that's what I'd end up with. So now I've flown many of the DJI drones, and whatever that thing was that we saw earlier, I can't tell you. No, it seems bigger, a lot bigger. Kind of came from over the horizon a little bit too. But yeah, who knows what that is? Be interested if there's any radar return on that. Huh. If anybody knows more of the backstory on that. So what else is going on, Rob?
Esmeralda is making a statement. Just because she wrote, just because we will not be the first civilization to blow itself up does not mean we should believe that we are destined to do that. No, I think that we do have hope to change that. And that's why I say that all of humanity needs to know we are encountering, and that they are, how many craft are observed around our military assets, our nuclear power plants, and our stockpiles of spent fuel rods. If the whole of humanity understands how they have been increasing their frequency and how up close they've been getting in larger numbers across the planet. And when I first started looking into the nuclear aspects of them shutting off and turning back on the nuclear warheads and things, I thought maybe it was a few instances of, or maybe just one or two. No, it wasn't. It was dozens and dozens of times in in the United States and Russia, and I'm sure it's happened in China. They just don't, they won't talk about it. But and I think that Luke's not allowed to talk about it. You'll notice that people that have served in our government in top secret programs don't mention that U.S. nuclear ICBMs were turned on by the phenomena, but it is in the book UFO and Nukes. I think because they have probably investigated it somewhat in their official capacity, they can't speak to it in a public capacity, or they'll get accused of violating their NDA. But it's in the book, and that's where I found out that they were switching them on here as well. Eli, who moved the 1,000-ton blocks at Baalbek? Anything's possible when you take the gravity of that in. Yeah, definitely. And there, Shannon and I were talking about that last night. With UFO Man, actually. And I'm going to say part of it for Saturday, but the gist of it is, yeah, they were using anti-gravity, and they were using, if you go back and look at the Shamir of Solomon, there's the account in the Old Testament and Solomon's writings where he went and found a demon that it was basically something the size of a mustard seed that had the energy to cut and move blocks of stone with, because there is more cut block in the Temple Mount and placed than there is in the Great Pyramid before it was torn down by the Romans. It was the largest megalithic structure on the planet ever made, and it was done without a single iron tool ringing out on it. But at Baalbek, they have measured on the trilithon stones that are up to 1,600 tons, the diameter of the saw blade that made the arcs on it, and you can look at the radius curves on them. I think it was like 32 feet across is the size of the saw blade that would have had to be used to cut that. But they also had the ability to soften and re-solidify the stone without changing its chemical composition. So there are microspherules, which is melted balls of granite and basalt in concentrations that you only see with nuclear explosions and cometary impacts. But they are in tandem with the saw cuts on Baalbek and across the planet. Laboratory of Alternative History, a Russian scientific group that does tremendous research, and it's LAH.RU is their website. They are the real deal. If you want facts and data, and they've done investigations all over the planet, they've sampled at least 5 sites where they found metal, advanced alloys that they took out of saw cuts that had high thermal properties that can only be done we can't replicate some of the metallurgy today that we're finding samples from back then. And they were found in these saw cuts at Baalbek, along with the microspherules, in concentrations that were dense enough to show that there was at least, I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 degree temperature sustained there. So they were using some type of like a equivalency of a low yield nuclear tool to soften the stone with and power the saws that likely they used the high heat metals to sculpt it with when they softened it, and they were able to re-solidify without vitrifying the stone, which is completely impossible for our physics that we know of. Website lah.ru. H.ru. That should get you on. And there's the guy that died that headed it up. I think was a genius. Literally, it's at old.lah.ru. Andrei Skylarov. His work. If you go back and read his papers on the phenomena, his opinion pieces and his investigative pieces were some of the most brilliant on the planet. Hey, Bob, welcome to the party, man. Sorry I didn't let you know advanced, but I didn't know I was going to be here until 10 minutes before, because I didn't know I'd be done in the basement before then. So that, I think, is the other website. And if we can't find the Change of the Sea story, leave a comment on this after it's done and it reposts, and I will pop a link into the comment section after the fact, probably tomorrow sometime. So, yep, glad to see you here, Bob. Yep, I guess you're acclimated with Esmeralda. Good deal. Yeah. You guys can get a doctorate in LAH's research. It is that exhaustive and accurate. I mean, they are the real deal as far as scientists. I don't know of any other organization on the planet that has been as scientifically truth and science of being documenting their work in chain of custody and being 100% honest in what they state as fact. They prove everything. They back it up. They have peer-reviewed papers even. One of them is a peer-reviewed paper on metallurgy. I will put a link in the chat. Remind me. I can show you guys a video where one of the guys from LAH did a video on all of the ancient metallurgy that was found where they sampled around the planet and proves it, because there's a peer-reviewed paper from metal took out of Karnak, out of one of the saw cuts there, and they have a mass spectrometry report from that on the advanced metallurgy from that. And there's no way in hell people from that age could have produced metals like that. We can't produce metals like that today. It's one of those things I think that they talk about had to have been done in zero gravity to somehow did it stratifies or does not stratify in the spectrum. Very complicated. Don't even think I could explain it at this point, but read the reports. There's one that was Yahweh versus Baal is one of the stories on the old LAH.RU articles. It was an opinion piece by the head that died of that organization. Excellent article. It's a long read, but it's worth it. And another one is the Old Gods, Where Are You? Or Old Gods, Who Are They? Something like that. Fantastic reads. The guy was just pure genius. I've learned a tremendous amount of reading his papers. I have spent weeks at a time immersed in that guy's works. You can get lost in there forever. Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. Yeah, please. Link the Ballback video. Glad to see you here, man. We would like to get you on the channel soon to go over this. So let's get together, and anybody else in the team that wants to join in, let's throw down, man. Let's lay this case out. So yeah,
I'm all ears, folks.
Oh man, you get us going with Andrew and Phil and Dave. It would be a barn burner, let me tell you. Yeah, it would be game on. Yeah, you think I know some shit? These guys taught me, so that'll tell you something.
Found a link.
Yeah,
to
Andrew was one of my mentors. He still is one of my mentors. Good deal. Yeah, Andrew with ancient. That's who Ancient History Criticisms is Andrew, and he is still one of my mentors in ancient history. They've got me up to speed from their decades of research. These guys are brilliant. So I am still a student of theirs and very thankful they allowed me into their group about 4 years ago that I've been a part of ever since. So phenomenal people. And they have an ongoing perpetual conversation on ancient history on Twitter on their accounts. And you can find Andrew by the same name there. And then you'll find I have a list on Twitter of ancient history people. So you can go down to that and find all the major players listed there in that group tab that I have. I don't know what the hell you call it, but they're there, and that'll put you on target with who all the what they call alternative ancient history. Actually, it's the real ancient history that the mainstream doesn't want to acknowledge yet, but they will. Just like with the topic of them trying to say that, oh, this is hilarious, because we were debating a college professor a few years ago. One of his favorite lines was oh, you believe in aliens in Atlantis, so therefore your whole argument is completely boosted and irrelevant. There's no facts to it. You're all a bunch of liars. Well, now he's eating crow, because guess what? There are ancient, there provable accounts of ancient paleo contact of what we would consider aliens, and ergo probably the narrative of Atlantis, even if it weren't actually verbatim, there was an advanced civilization that got wiped out at the Younger Dryas. So that too is going to end up being true in the essence of it, at least. So yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew, for the links. And put a link to your channel up here too. Folks, you can go on his and see all the hallmarks that tie all these mystery builders of the megaliths, and there are at least 4 generations of them, of epochs. You got the Cyclopean, then the polygonal, complex polygonal, Herodian ashlars. They, each successive generation built on top of their predecessor. So there were different ages and different places of them. But he lays out the hallmarks, what they call nubs. They call us the nub guys, because the protrusions with the limited character sets on Twitter, we have to condense out our terminology. So that's why we call them nubs in part. But they have identified several hallmarks that tie all the megaliths on the planet across all these different continents, when thousands of years before accepted historical accounts say that they knew of each other, these hallmarks prove that all these different megalithic structures across the planet were in contact with each other thousands and thousands of years before historians and academics will acknowledge they even knew of their existence of each continent. So brilliant work. He's got it on his channel, documented of it. And I look forward to doing a lot more collaborations with him. Dead serious. I want to get with you guys, Andrew, on this channel and on UFO Man, and we can be the tip of the spear in showing how the connection with how the phenomena is nothing new to humanity. This has been, in play ever since 40,000 years ago was the first cave drawing of what we would call an alien. Damn sure was, because 40-foot tall, red, bulbous head, holding humans, looking like it's eating up for lunch. Yeah, I call that a cryptid or an alien. So, hell yeah. Yeah, the 7 sages, the shiny ones, the Apkallu, they were the same as what the fallen ones, the sons of, the fallen angels. They were also the Apkallu. Gilgamesh was 2/3 God, 1/3 human. That's consistent across Zoroastrianism, the Old Testament, the Vedics, and the Sumerian accounts. So yeah, there's something there that's a consistent core narrative that speaks the truth. And you get a lot of different narratives that refer to other religions and other gods, because you have to have a point of reference. So where they say that they overlap and they copy each other, you have to give a context that people can understand. So yes, there's going to be some overlap in telling the story, because you got to say, well, you guys heard this story. The way I understand it, it's kind of this way from my perspective, but who's to say? Let's look at it, and that's where we're at. So yep, it's consistent. The essence of the story, you're absolutely right, Bob. It stayed the same, and that doesn't. We're finding out more and more that that's the truth of it, and I think as we bring forth the evidence to show that paleo contact with these ultra terrestrials has been with us the entire time, and it does not negate that what we want to call a creator god of all, even the Vedics and the Anunnaki and all them, they even state that they were not the creators of all, that there was the one creator God, they weren't it. So you want to call it source, Yahweh, whatever, they even pay homage to that creator God of all. So it doesn't negate religion, folks. It enhances it. They can mutually exist, and it doesn't compromise a person's faith if they understand the Bible correctly and don't limit the God that they believe in. So, I'm not going to preach about it too much, but I just want people to not be nervous about their faith and how this fits, because it's not a threat to that. And universally, what the phenomena shows and what Jacques Vallée talks about with the control system, um, even psychology among the abject atheists, psychiatrist papers, the one common thread that they all agree on is that they recognize there is life after death. That is not the end. Uh, Death in the flesh is not the death of who we are. We were created in the image of God, and that was not in the flesh. It was in the spirit, the essence of us that is the energy, the life source. That is not flesh and blood, folks. Call it what you will, but it doesn't end when the body dies. This is just a vessel, plain and simple. That's the way I understand it. And that's the way a lot of people understand it across every religion, even the ones that don't have religion and believe in whatever, they still acknowledge death is not the end. And, we can even talk about the reincarnation cases at some point that we were talking about, where that's provable too. That doesn't fit with my belief structure, but the evidence tells me otherwise. So, I have to accept the facts where they lead me. The Bible really doesn't talk about the ability to reincarnate. So yeah, I can't dismiss it, and I won't. We just don't know everything. We didn't need to know. Life's confusing enough as it is with just basic instructions we can't follow. Well, why complicate it? So I guess I'm gonna stop ranting for the night if people don't have more questions. Andrew, did you leave a link to your YouTube page so people can see your work? And I'm gonna put my links back up. I've got playlists. I've got links that will blow your guys' minds. A playlist that I've created on ancient history and physics and science and all that. And I'm getting ready to put it back up again, and that will blow your minds and be an
Yeah, I'll pop
source.
some popcorn and get a soda and kick back and enjoy that.
Yeah. But yeah,
There
we're
it
gonna get
is.
Andrew and
You
the
put it
crew
up.
on. Thank you.
Would love to hear it.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna
what's
get
the
them on
plans
and
for
light it
tomorrow?
up.
What's the plans
Paperwork,
for tomorrow,
man.
Rob? Gonna do
Paperwork
paperwork?
before I lose my
What if I find some good stuff? Good stuff to put out to the folks here. You think you might be up for it tomorrow, or it's up? We'll see.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
If not, we'll just carry it over to the
I'm
next
gonna,
day.
yeah.
But you never know.
Yeah.
So make sure you hit that subscribe and the notification, folks. I say it 100 times, trying to get that. Oh, somebody had a question earlier about what is the super chats and all that. So what happens once you get 1,000 plus folks subscribe, your channel becomes monetized. Well, this channel, the money, all of it, 100% goes to charity. So when you do a super chat, it's basically you have the opportunity of buying these little sticker things, and it goes into the chat. So you can ask a question or just saying, hey guys, love your show. And you do, like, let's say a $5 super chat, and then we'll share it. It'll be something like, like right here, and then you'll have a $25 next to it or whatever. Ancient history criticism. There'll be $125 next to his name for him donating to our charity, and we'll thank him. Thank you. And that's how that works. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to happen this year. We're going to hit 1,000. Could you imagine where we'll be in another like 2 years, Rob? It's going to blow our minds, dude. It's gonna blow everybody's
Yeah.
mind. So come along with the journey with
Which
us, folks.
it is.
This is
The charity is for Wounded Warrior, pinups for vets, and St. Francis No Kill shelter in Wyoming that Lou has frequented. So we have a link, Wounded Warrior, where people can donate now, and I want to put that on our community page. So now they can go and do that until we get our webpage up for the other two charities, and then the donation would go to all three, and it would be tax deductible. 100% goes to that. And Bob, I am so forgot about our online chess games, and in part, I'm worried you're going to kick my ass at it. So I've been a little hesitant to take you on that one, but I think I'm getting my courage up. Just go easy on me, dude. And yeah,
all right.
But,
Go ahead, Rob.
Andrew's saying he's gonna be around for the next couple of days. If you want to come on for a chat tomorrow night, maybe if you're off work, if you're not prepared with a slideshow, or even just a few, we don't need the pictures. We don't need the stinging pictures. If you want to come in and talk,
I want pictures. I want a PowerPoint.
Sure.
I want to see.
Yeah. Well, they're showing up with a few pictures, and then they're showing up with his pictures. There's a big difference, believe me. But if you can show up with a few, even that'd be great. If he wants to
I'll
show
post
up,
them.
you know.
I want to see them because what I've seen already is pretty interesting with all the cuts.
Oh, he's got a 6 gig photo album on that he will share a link to for free to people to show his work, where he has made folders of all the megalithic sites, all the hallmarks, the iconography, statuary, carving, glyphs. This man has been spending years archiving all that. So he has a link to that as well for people that want to see it. It's a phenomenal body of work. So yeah, pick a time tomorrow night, Andrew. Hit me up, and yeah, we'll pick a time and get it posted, and then advertise the shiz tomorrow. That would be cool. Yeah, let's get it on.
Heck yeah.
And yeah, if you want to bring some of the other gang, light them up. Let's do this, man. We'll have a big party.
Heck yeah. How many people can I put in here? I have no idea, but we'll just keep stacking them in here until we
6 or 10. I know.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, if you guys want access to his catalog,
heck yeah,
absolutely. If you guys want access to his online catalog of all that work that he is, hit him up on Twitter with the same handle he's got here, and he will fix you up. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get some rest, and yeah, Andrew, let's plan that for tomorrow night.
Rob is out of steam. Rob's out of steam.
Wow. Yeah. 2 hours of vacuuming, wet vacuuming the basement kind of smoked my back, and I'm getting a little bit smoke. XYY. Yeah. Learner Conduit. I asked you before, are you somebody that I know as a friend of mine in real life? I don't want to say your name for privacy purposes, but I have a very good friend of mine that has that genetic abnormality. So I do know something about that. And if you're that person, then yeah, we're well acquainted. I just don't want to expose your name. So yeah. All right. Well, yeah, hit me up, Andrew. Send me a text, and let's get a time hammered out for tomorrow night, and then we'll start advertising it on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook.
I'll make a thumb.
Let's blow this thing up.
I'll make a thumbnail for it and everything.
Okay. Yeah. Good deal. Andrew, you're on our same sleep cycle. Okay, cool. Yeah, sounds like a party, man. We'll bring you the dip.
I'll try to
I'm
bring
trying
some
to
good
read, so
questions.
that's why I'm looking funny. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The Lunar is not the same person. So yeah. Hit me up on Twitter. Same name. That's my name here. So I'm not hard to find, and we'll talk. I did have somebody that sent me. I get sent a lot of UFO pictures and video. I had a anonymous account send me one recently, as I get a lot of them. But this one, they sent me a picture of, and I think they're being less than honest and actually being kind of ornery, because they say it's a picture of an alien on a UFO craft. But what it actually is a vibrating jackrabbit sex toy out of focus. So I'm not an idiot. So whoever sent me that, nice try, but I remember shapes, and yeah, that one was kind of obvious. You're going to try a little harder to spoof me. So yeah, that was funny, but I didn't appreciate it that much. So yeah, somebody trying to be a jerk and prove that they could slip one over on us, that we're gullible and we'll fall for anything. But nope, try a little harder.
They're trying with that. They trying to ride on the coattails of the Turkey UFO video, photos, crap thing that I
No, what they're
posted.
trying to do was, I think what their intent was to send me a picture and for me to put it out there. Hey, somebody sent me a picture of. They're trying to say that we are gullible and can't identify accurate information, and that I would share it all over Twitter, and then they would come along and say, we fooled you. It's actually a sex toy, not an alien. And boy, you guys are idiots. Well, no, I didn't fall for it. Sorry. Cat's out of the bag on that one, or the rabbit, as we may say.
All right,
Yeah,
Rob, wrap
that's
it
fine.
up. Any last things?
Nope. You better get me out of here if I say something stupid.
Woo! All right, folks. Make sure you hit that subscribe, hit that notification button, because we're going to be coming up. We're going to have some more folks joining us with a conversation. I hope you all have been enjoying this this group conversation. And until then, later.
I'll take care, all right? Nothing but love for you. Nothing but love for you. You think they have any clue what's about to happen to them?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.